blind man cross the road, trying to make the other side, baby. Ever seen a young girl growing old, trying to make herself a bride? So what becomes of you, my love?
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Pray that he's still out there, somewhere.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for being with us here on Eating While Honey and Locusts. Always a pleasure to gather together with you. It's one of the highlights for us all here as we prepare, as we pray, and then we gather together as a team, a panel, but also with you, fellowship here. So Mary Horn, welcome, Nazarene, Defender, Rick Johnson, David Morgan, Brandon, Charlton Time, Melissa J, Lara, Ashton, Peggy Burrick, another one from Alaska, Rainey, Hillary, Nassere's house, Sherry Slabber, and Shasana, and Sue Susanna, she's from Wales, as you know, Joshua, so many of you here, just absolutely welcome as you join. Thank you for being with us today. You know, so much to go through, and really we are continuing the first part that we started with Jon Hallan last week. Very important that we continue to have that watchman call, just in case, not with any falsity or fear, but standing on the walls and giving that signal and assessing everything that needs to be looked at right now in these times. Wesley's health isn't too great today, so we've had to postpone part 3 of what he shared. I know there's a great demand for that. He will be back next week. He just needs this week to settle with his health and prepare so that he can return next week. And please just pray for him, but also know that he is coming back. And then the following week, we should be having Eddie Chumney, unless he has to come next week, and then Wesley will come the following week. But you know, there's so much going on with Sukkot coming up in about 3 weeks' time, less today, and there's so much planning there. As far as UK is concerned, we still have place for you to come. And you know, this is something very, very special. In fact, if I go back, this day last year, that's when Shane fell down and he became paralyzed. And it turned out to be the last day that he would have in this house until he passed away. I'm actually quite strong saying that. In the past months, I wouldn't have been able to say that without crumbling. But I'm actually spiritually proud where I am at this place, at this time, because it's really important now that my life has changed, that I continue to serve Yah, to pray, to fellowship, to serve the body and to build the body. And I've really put so much into that, not because someone is missing in my life, but because he kept on saying to me almost every day, Jessica, you're working with Stephen, both of you together. It's not just Stephen, it's not just those that you work with. You two, you build your chorale. And I took that really, really seriously. The feasts are so important to me. They're important. Why? Because when we came out of Christendom, that was something that we did not know about. I was in the middle of a research degree, a master's degree, to actually bring church leadership and ordination in my path so that I could serve what I thought was where I would be in the community I was in. And from day one, with everything that happened come 2019, 2020, my life just changed. I knew that I couldn't do that anymore. And then this Hebrewic understanding came about. And by coincidence, or incidence, I should say, Stephen was doing his first hosting on YouTube, and somehow he managed to double broadcast, and I managed to move people over to the right channel without knowing Stephen. But from there, we came into this friendship, this working relationship, where he has a heart for the UK, and together we are just reaching different nations, not only the UK, but it is important, whilst we can, that we bring Torah, we bring those sacred names, and having that inscribed in people's heart, giving them the opportunity to understand what it is to worship, what they've missed It is not about Easter. It's not about Christmas, about these feasts, and how important it is that we understand that this is our rhythm of life, that these are appointed and sacred times, and why we have to position ourselves for them, because we know that we are in prophetic times. So, you know, I'm literally doing this in faith and that of a widow's mite. And literally, obviously, my situation is that of a widow. But I've seen from a mite everything come to pass, in that it is gone to Florida and now it is here. And from having nothing, being able to host 8 days instead of 2 or 3 days that we normally do. And just different things happening. And every day it is faith to see things come to work, people coming about, partnerships, relationships growing. And so we have now 8 days to host for you, to provide for you, to teach you, to fellowship with you, to sharpen with you, learn alongside you, not just teach, you know, in these times what these feasts are for, where we can build relationship, build a plan for Europe and this country should something happen, so that we can meet and we can stay in relationship. So if we put these things in place, we've got the venue for 8 days. I want you to email me, to contact me, look on the website, book your place. If you genuinely cannot afford the booking fee, contact me and tell me, because I'd rather have you there and make it easier for you to come, rather than have all these obstacles in the way. That small booking fee helps me to provide all the different things that we need for 8 days of expenses. But that's not to put you off, because we are here trying to do something quite unique and very difficult to do ordinarily, but it has been miracle by miracle. So I'm asking you, you know, we've got a wonderful 80-year-old man who is so astute, very much like Dr. Pidgeon in how he speaks. And he comes from a background of common law and working in that, devising that, and then leaving that and moving into Torah. And we've got the 19th and the 20th of September, where he will be sharing in specific sessions about that, what that means for us, how we can move away from it, you know, how that affects where we live, school, different things, and how to approach it correctly and understand what we're dealing with. We have a family who have moved their children into homeschooling. So for those in Britain who no longer want their children to be in the school system, but you just don't know how you're going to be able to migrate to this, they're going to give the advice, put that in place from infancy all the way up to GCSEs and A levels. So that's one that is very much in demand. From making unleavened bread to seeds, to other independent researchers coming in on top of the research and the teaching that we will get both from Dr. Stephen and from Eddie Chumney. Christine Zhang, as you know, you've asked for simplicity in certain things. You want to know how to do word searches to make a study something of substance. You know, in all the years that when I was doing my degrees, I was never shown to do a word search or to use eSword. And I find those things far more instrumental than the sourcing I had to do for all my different papers. And that's what you're saying, exactly the same thing. We need to know so that we can add substance to our study, but we don't know what the G stands for Greek, what the H stands for Hebrew. We don't know how to appreciate the Torah portion. How do you establish which portion, which parsha, etc. is for what? We're going to do those things so that you can become that expositor for yourself. You know, what you're asking, we are trying to provide for you. There is so much more there, and we're trying to build it into the website to provide all this information. So, you know, we're doing our very best to keep up to the date with that. But I now want to just go into what we're going to be ministering on today. So it's Revelation in the Stars. And as I said, this is what Jon Hallan kicked us off with. And very many of you here today have said, this is what I want. This is really what we need for these times. So I just want to give you a biblical precipice start to this as we go forward. None of us here are setting dates, so understand that we are giving considerations for you to hold, like we always do. Whenever there is something significant, we do this. But now also it's to do with star alignment and constellations and the days and the significance that there could be. So bear that in mind, please. So we're just looking at the book of Revelation. We all know here that this is a book of the future. And like it says in Enoch, for a distant generation. Well, I believe that we are this distant generation. And many of you, from reading these books for yourself, have come to the same conclusion. So I'm not saying anything new to you. You know, today we're going to be looking at Daniel and how that hidden mysteries of Daniel feed in and complement and certify that what is in the book of Revelation. But I want to see how the signs are connected, you know, more than that, how they synchronize with the sixth seal, the seventh trumpets, and the vials, the bowls. That's very important that we do this. But simply what I want to do, let's just go into some scriptures that we have here, which is as your basis before I introduce to you the panel. Very simply, for the testimony of Yahuwah is the ruach of prophecy, Shazon, Revelation, chapter 19, verse 10. That is our basis. And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. Today we are on watch. Mark, chapter 13, verse 37. But if the watchmen see the sword come, and blow not the shofar, and the people be not warned, but if the sword come, and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood I will cry at the watchman's hand. Ezekiel, chapter 33, verse 6. And I will show wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. Mashaim, Acts chapter 22, verse 19. You know, that particular verse never made sense to me until I understood that the sky is our calendar, the stars is our calendar, and it speaks so much more there. And now it's beginning to make sense to me. And I put a note there that the stars are a primary purpose and are to be assigned to us. Indeed, in the Bereshith, Genesis, chapter 1, verse 14, and Elohim said, let there be light in the expanse of the heavens, divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for appointed feasts and for days and for years. Exactly what I said in the introduction. The heavens enumerate the glory of El, and the expanses show his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night shows knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Telahim, Psalms, chapter 19, verses 1 to 3. But if the day and the hour knows no man, no, not the angel of heaven, but my Father only. Matthew 24, verse 36. So we're looking at these things through the book of Daniel because it speaks of a knowledge being increased before the end time. That's what we're seeing here right now. It shows where the wise will understand. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the Cepher, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and the knowledge shall be increased. Daniel, chapter 12, verse 4. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Daniel 12, verse 10. And that's just a little bit of a preface that I wanted to share here with you. As we go into this, as a foundation, you take those scriptures and hold it with everything that we have here right now. So, okay, let me begin here. So let's bring Jon, and you obviously know our resident Jon. Hi, welcome, Jon. Thank you for being here today. And you're going to take us into the rest of the program. Let's bring Dr. P. Stephen, always wonderful to have you here. You always add a new facet to everything I think I've grasped, and then I realize I need to go back. So I'm looking forward to have that again here and your input. Prophetically and insight. So thank you so much for always being with us. Nearly 3 years now, Stephen. Thank you. And very new, this is Garry Parks from EWHAL Ministries in the UK. For all of you who are not aware who he is, he's going to be helping on the worship front with Ruth Mary. He has a spectacular voice. As I was saying to Stephen in the green room, he doesn't need instruments to sing. He is astounding. And Tony Wright, who you all know, introduced me to him about 3 years ago, and they were doing a Sukkot in a caravan. Absolutely beautiful. They had men and women with head coverings, and they were singing just with no music apart from the drums, the ones that Stephen likes, where you just sit and you hit, and there was rhythm and there was soul. And I've never heard anything like it apart from when you see like the African, the Ethiopian worship, and they go, woo! I can't even sound like that. Amazing. It was absolutely astounding. And the presence within that little caravan room. So, I'm excited that with the 8 days of Sukkot that we have, that we're going to have focused times of worship. And Garry, you will be helping to bring in that presence. But you're very much gifted in your own right in teaching and study. And that's why I called you, because of the subject that we have here today. It was you that inspired us to look into this further. And I wanted to introduce you to everybody here online and in the UK. He will be meeting you shortly, and welcome you. So thank you, Garry.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to meet Jon for the first time, and Dr. Pidgeon as well. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
Shalom to everyone who's watching.
Okay, Jon, take us away.
So folks, start off with, it's for the glory of the Father and His Son Yeshua HaMashiach and Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And basically, I've been so humbled doing this study in the past week. I've been humbled on lots of the studies, but this one, when you sit back and look at some of the marvels of the signs in the skies, right? The book of Revelation itself is a book of mystery, right? It's a book of symbols. And, it's been interpreted many ways over the past thousands of years. But tonight, I want to take you through some stuff. And in fact, it's Dale Potts last week after the show said, "Hey, Jon, have you looked at this?" Because Dale and I studied together at Cepher actually a couple of years ago to do, look at the sun, moon, and stars effectively. And so we both of us look in the background at things. And so I had a look at this other thing on YouTube. And frankly, there's a key there. And this other chap has opened the door to the possibility that some of the signs we've been seeing recently, including the August 7th and the 14th signs, are part of a much bigger sign. Okay, a bigger sign that manifests on October the 9th this year, that makes the Revelation 12 sign blush in simplicity. And I say that with the greatest humility, because it's just quite marvelous. And so tonight we're going to take you through how these signs link together, and then have a chat really, because with Garry on, with Dr. P on, got two very learned people here who can critique things, see where we've made mistakes, look at the relevance of how it fits now, and how we can read them, so we don't get all sensationalist about X, Y, and Z, naming dates like everyone's tried to do for the past 20 years and got it wrong, right? The last thing we want to do is start naming dates, but what we do want to do is actually, hopefully, look at the fact that we have opened the book. The book has been opened, and we can start looking from there. Okay, so Jess, do you want to start sharing the screen? Is that possible? So yeah. This is go back a page. Sorry, Jess, quickly on the front page. So this is a pinnacle. So first of all, it's presentations for teaching and educational purposes only, as always. This is the pinnacle sign of signs, right? And as you go through this, you'll see an updated timeline. So if you spin forward, so the next slide would be great. Thank you. So the first thing is the top left here is the Daniel, who's a chap that's found the key effectively. The key to seeing how these signs link together and how they culminate in a sign of signs, if you like a total revelation sign on October the 9th. And so when Dale showed me, it's so profound, I've dropped everything, all the other studies I'm doing, to look at this for the past week, and just to shake it down and see whether it's food for us or not, really. So that's what we're doing today. References are obviously, we use the Cepher as our primary baseline for scripture, as always. Which in the Stars with Bullinger is a framework we're going to use just to get the context for some of the signs. And Sky Map is a very simple, cheap, or free tool on the internet anyone can use. You just put in a date, put in a planet name or something, and it pulls up for you. So anyone can do research quickly. And at the bottom, we did a number of shows with Dr. P 2 years ago, like back in 2022, on the Sixth Seal and the Destroyer. All right, there's some slides there. All of those back up the study today. Okay, so let's spin forward. Sorry, it won't be a monologue, I promise you. go forward again. Okay, so it's an event. What were we talking about? It's an event in the heavens, exactly matching the Book of Revelation. The odds are far beyond any chance or coincidence. The Revelation 12 sign is the first part of the signs, if you like, and it's almost like a type and shadow of what we're going to see, and we're going to take learnings from that when we go forward. So, Jess, go to the next slide. So, on the left, we have the Revelation 12 sign, and I'm suggesting it's a type and shadow of a much more complex event we're going to witness now. The duration of the first sign is 9.5 months. On one special day, the 23rd of September 2017, with a full alignment of all objects. It had the sun, giving glory, had the moon, 4 planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, 1 constellation in Virgo, Bethula, and 1 planet with special movement, or 1 planet with, went into retrograde, which is Jupiter, for 9.5 months in the womb of the woman. Okay, so that was a very special and unique sign. And to people that say it's happened before, I'd argue it hasn't happened with Jupiter for 9.5 months in the womb, right? if they find it like 100 years ago or something. Now, the total revelation sign we're going to go on to now actually started on June the 5th. Okay, it comes to a climax on October the 9th, 2024, and the parts continue to move, possibly for as long as 7 years. But we can measure. I've only gone forward 5 months. Okay. The duration of the sign is 7 years. I'll show you how that works. And there's one special day. There might be several special days, but we found the first one, which is the 9th of October. It involves a sun, moon, 6 planets, 7 constellations, and planets with special movement in Uranus that lights the menorah for 7 years. Jupiter that stands still for 12 hours, or half a day, or half an hour in heavenly time. And Mars, that's 5 months, 9th of October to 9th of March, exactly to the day that's in retrograde, and comes back, goes from Hercules and comes back into Apollo. So that's
John,
the sign. Yeah,
John, a couple of things there. One is that I really believe that the pronunciation of Uranus is actually Uranus.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because it actually has a meaning. If you spell it Ouranus, which was its original spelling, you'll see that it has a meaning of the universe, Uranus. And the other thing is that you have a duration for 7 years. Isn't that interesting? A duration.
It is. And as we get on to this, you'll see there should be a couple of moments in here where I can pause for thoughts. And it is. And I think when we see that the eclipses we've been talking about, going from 2017 to 2024, April, etc., mark 7 years, what you'll find is that this June the 5th is a 7-year between now and 2031. So there's a second 7 years now. So it's kind of interesting looking at that. I mean, Gary, is that something you've thought about or looked at? I know you've looked at planets and things.
Yeah, so when I first looked at this in 2017, and I thought, well, I didn't want to set dates. I didn't want to say that issue was coming back in 2017. For me, there are a number of things that I would expect to see prophetically around that time. So I was just keeping everything open, keeping my mind open. And when I first saw that 7 years on from 2017, we would have this unique alignment going on in the constellation of Shore, we call Taurus, and the Pleiades. But then my mind was thinking, again, just like Dr. Stephen Pidgeon's just picked up, Father works in sequence of sevens. So I'm thinking, what if there's something 7 years on from that date in 2024? But I didn't look further on, but my mind was keeping open for it. So I'm glad that you've picked up on that and you're looking further down the track, so to speak. So I'm really happy just to be here. There was no one else to kind of share this stuff with at the time. Like yourself, I'm looking to the heavens and the celestial bodies, to the heavenly luminaries, to know what's going on. I believe that, as the scripture says, everything is revealed. Knowledge is revealed, and the day speaks, and the night pour forth knowledge.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's the purpose of this, really, is to cogitate together, sit back and see what to make of it, really. If we go to the next slide, Jess, then this is a one-slide overview, really, of a possible interpretation for some of these things. All right, so on the left here, on this newer timeline, the new 7 years, if you like, I'll be going through again to look at these things in minutiae over the next few slides, not to bore you, but because it's kind of very interesting. We start with the lighting of the menorah on the 5th of June. We go to the 7th we talked about, but if in this context, it's Yahushua woken, it's time, okay? He's been notified something's happening. The 14th of August, he gets to the throne of judgment. Equinox event on the 22nd of September. I don't know what that is, but there's alignments there with just 2 days after the full moon on the 22nd of September, we can talk about. This total revelation sign on the 9th of October, where everything lines up. And then 5 months later, we've got the sign in Apollo with the moon and Mars. So that's kind of the timeline we're going to talk about tonight. And then that goes on for up to 7 years, right? So what we haven't done is look past the horizon of 5 months past this. So, yeah. Okay, Jess, do you want to
now, John, before
yes.
we continue, if I
Yes.
can, I just want to kind of go back and discuss for just 1 second the sign that was given on September 23rd, 2017.
Sure.
Which again, my reasoning on that is that sign was not calculated until October 1st because it was the birth of a male child. That was when Jupiter was in the womb of Virgo for 9.5 months.
Yeah.
And then it exited on September 23rd, 2017. But you can't count that because it was the birth of a male child, a man child is how they put it. So you can't count that for 8 days, which actually begins to count on October the 1st, 2017, which was Yom Kippur, by the way. That was Yom Kippur. And that was the date that there was a human sacrifice ritual in Las Vegas where 55 people were shot in a human sacrifice festival for Yom Kippur. And that date, when you look at that, there is a calculation you can use, which is if you take the Revelation 12 sign of 1,260 days plus 42 months, which is again another times and a half a time, or 3.5 years of 30-month days, another 1,260 days, that's 2,520 days. And 2,520 days from October 1st, 2017 lands us on August 25th of 2024. So if in fact that was a preliminary sign in Revelation 12, leading up to this total revelation sign, we can see its completion takes place August 25th. So that might fit in between the Yahusha sits on the throne of judgment and the equinox events over Yasharel, right in between there.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's great. And I think this is why we need to, combine forces and start looking at things in the whole, right? And that's the way we can understand things better, as being a bit of a polymath in terms of looking at the different things, from everything from social media to the stars to whatever, to come to a correct understanding of things in context. So thank you. Yeah. So background to the study. We're just gonna this is humor me for a couple of slides, okay? Just go over the next slide. So this is going to be how we've got to look at this. We shouldn't look at it as being kind of horoscope looking at and whatever, and like, oh, here we go. What's going up in the sky? I'll take the word for it. Using a simple tool, it's very easy to read. And on the left, I'm calling them stage scenes, which are the different constellations. We've got Taurus, the Bull, Pleiades, Sagittarius, Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius, and Virgo, all of which have different roles. You got the Bull, which is in fact, Garry can speak about this in more depth than I can, I'm sure. But but the bull there is set there for in his throne for judgment. Okay, is the bull coming to give judgment to the earth? Pleiades, the 7 churches. We'll go through this anyway in the next few slides. So those are the scenes. On the right hand side, you've got the actors. Now the actors are quite special because if you think about like a clock face, the moon is like the second hand. It goes super fast. Every day it hits a different place in the sky. So it can nail and mark things. So if you've got a planet moving, it takes 5 years to get across the sky, or 2 days or 2 weeks. The moon can go in conjunction and spot and give you an exact placement on an exact day to measure. And you see that in this constellation. The moon is a conjunction maker to help us set the date, an exact day, when you're not quite sure. Mercury does a similar thing. If you look at the left, you've got Mercury. It takes 88 days to go around the sun, whereas you've got Uranus or Uranus there, which takes 84 years to go around the sun. So you've got a very big difference there between the different planets and how long they take. And obviously you've got the sun in the middle, as glory. But as you can see, as they spin, because they go at different speeds, they're different distances apart. They can do what we call retrograde, which means they can stop still and can even go backwards on the planets in comparison to Earth. And by using the function of the moon spinning around, the combination of these planets going in funny directions or standing still, we then can build a picture. So an example would be Jupiter when it's in the womb of Virgo, the Virgin, or Yasharel, etc., back in September the 23rd. It's 9.5 months in retrograde, so it went backwards and then came out after 9.5 months. Okay, amazing. And that's how you can see the stage scene and the actor. And as we go forward, we'll be talking through the story now and showing how these signs link up to tell us how it plays out, basically, as per the Book of Revelation.
Now, John, before you continue on this, when we talk about the planets going backwards, again, this, you can see this if we were seeing this in motion, because, of course, what takes place is when we have a different rate of orbit around the sun, one is passing the other. And when we pass the other for some period of time in our view, it appears that the other planet is moving backwards as we pass it. And then when we get to a certain point past it, we can begin to see the planet's orbit again as it follows our path. Now, this is the scientific discussion, if you will. This is the Copernican discussion that talked about these kinds of evidences in the orbits that, from my point of view, best explains the visual we see. It best explains the visual we see. Now, maybe there's some other theories out there that maybe the planets don't actually orbit. Maybe they actually exist in a spiral or something, or there's some kind of a flip going on. I haven't seen any other explanation that has as much justification as the idea that it's orbiting at a different rate of speed. And when we pass it, there is a period of time as we're going beyond its orbit that we see it going backwards from our visual. Doesn't mean that it's going backwards, just that's what we see.
Yeah. Dr. P, I completely concur, and I like open-mindedness because there's certain funny things go on, like the moon being in a gravity lock with the Earth. So you only see for thousands of years, we've only seen the same side of the moon somehow. The Earth can be spinning at whatever speed, and the moon is just in a lock, hasn't moved 1 degree. So there's some strange things out there to challenge the model, but this is the accepted model and the model that we're going with because it works. Okay, if it happens to be a spiral, or happens to be some multidimensional universe or something else, that's out there. Right? Flat Earth is out there, whatever. But the model works, so we're going with the model. So, Garry, you okay with this precept?
Yep, I'm fine.
Cool.
I don't want to slow things down.
Okay, cool. All right,
Yeah,
great.
Garry, you need to please add.
Good.
Okay, let's spin to the next slide. So, again, if we look a bit closer, I was very happy with a couple of finds on the internet, right? This one was the sardine stones here from Etsy. I found some stones that look just like Jupiter. And the reason I'm happy about that is I'll go through because it personifies them a little bit. So first of all, define as Yahushua Jesus through the Revelation 12 sign. Jupiter was in the womb of the Virgin, so it sets by precedence then its role. So the role as an actor is Yahushua, okay? Isaiah 53:5, but he's wounded for our transgressions. You can see Jupiter's got a big wound on the front of it, and he's bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we're healed. So you can see he's got stripes. Okay. In Revelation 4:2, and immediately I was in the Ruach, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat upon the throne. And he that sat upon him was like a jasper and a sardine stone. Now, sardine stone I've picked up there from Etsy on the right, and you can see it looks, some of them look very close to, in terms of color and markings, as Jupiter. Okay. And there's a rainbow round about the throne, slight likened to an emerald. So this actor we've seen down as Yahusha. Okay, Jupiter. Let's move to the next sign, if that's okay. Now, the second sign for Yahusha is Venus, and the key here is again Revelation 4:3. And he that sat on the throne looked like a jasper and a sardine stone. So jasper stone, I picked this one up from eBay. Looks very close, right, with the mottling, etc., as Venus itself on the right hand side. So I think it's quite a good likeness again of those stones. And Venus is obviously known as the morning star. So I'm placing that as being Yahusha as the second witness or second angle for him. Okay. Next actor. This one I'd like some opinion on because of the role it plays. The role it plays in the sign is a dark role, just to say up front. Okay, it's under the bowl of wrath. So I'm assuming it's a dark character, even though in Hebrew it says Shabbat. So I'd like your opinion on that. But before we get onto that, the role it plays will be like a dark role, like Babylon or whatever. And in Amos it says, have you offered to me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Yasharel? But you have borne the tabernacle of your Molech, and your images, the star of your Elohim, which you made yourselves. Therefore, will I cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, says Yahweh, whose name is Elohai Seventh. Okay, so basically he's saying, again, this is a wandering star. This may or may not be the item, but at the bottom here, Jeff Wingo is stating that Molech went by many names in the ancient world, including Kronos in Greek and Saturn by those in Rome. So I'm linking Saturn with Molech, and Molech with Yah's judgment there. Okay. I don't know if that's right or wrong. Thoughts, anybody?
Well, when you talk about it being called Shabbati, right, or Shabtai, you see it given in the Masoretic pronunciation as Shabtai. Yeah, because, right. Okay. So the thing with the Shabtai is that we have to remember that Saturn is the seventh, right? It's the seventh. So the word for Sabbath, Shabbat, is actually the plural form of Shabbat, which is seven. So Shabtai means the seventh, and actually the Tai, the yod at the end, gives you an idea that this is a possessive, meaning mine. And then you have the aleph here at the end also, which is basically what this is saying is, I will be my seventh, or this is my seventh. This is my seventh. So that's what Shabtai means. Shabbat, yes, Shabbat is a form of the Shabbat, but
okay.
It's a specific, my seventh.
So rather than being holy and holy day, it can be just the number 7 effectively.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Garry, you okay with that?
Again, I can neither confirm nor deny that there's a negative connotation regarding Saturn's connection to all this. So it's open. I've heard speculation in the past regarding Saturn being a connection to Malak, Satan, Hasatan. But again, speculation, can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay. No.
So it's still
Garry,
open.
while you're talking about this, and Garry, is there any chance you could bring your mic up on your system? Can you bring your microphone up?
Sure, I can do that.
While you're talking about that,
sure. Go ahead. Does that sound better?
Yeah, that's a lot better. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Good.
When you talk about Chronos in the Greek, now Chronos was actually identified as in the ancient records as the leader of the fallen away rebellion that caused 1/3 of the messengers to fall, and in fact, Kron was his name, and And so this, and part of that fall may have been what? Doing things on the seventh day that were prohibited.
Mm. It's
So
interesting.
this might be
Yeah.
part of it, right?
Yeah. So I've been on the fence by instinct. I'm thinking it must be negative by, like, you think of Satan and stuff, or whatever else. But then look at the Hebrew of the Shabbat, then being 7. But when you actually get into the sign, you'll see its positioning, and then I would fall with the definition at the bottom here. But let's let things play out. For the minute, we're casting it as a bad actor. I stand to be corrected, but let's move forward. Okay. If we go to the next slide, this is the fairly commonly known, hopefully, one of the Pleiades, which has on the bottom left there, you can see a map of Turkey with the 7 churches. On the right in the sky, I've kind of drawn circles to mimic those stars mostly aligned, not perfectly, but very closely, as being the same. Okay. And Revelation 1:20, it says, the mystery of the 7 stars which you saw on my right hand, and the 7 gold menorahs. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 called out assemblies, and the 7 menorahs which you saw are the 7 called out assemblies. So that's a key identification for us in terms of the star sign. So I'd hope you both agree on that one. But
This is mind-boggling from my point of view, John. It's just mind-boggling, especially given the fact that we in modernity couldn't prove there was a 7th star in the Pleiades until the telescope.
1775. Oh, 1920, wasn't it, or something? Subaru. It's quite late, wasn't it? Japan.
Yeah. and the telescope called Subaru would find what? The Church of Philadelphia, basically, is the star that it found to create the 7th star in the Pleiades. But they knew that there were 7 stars in Pleiades in the book of Job. They knew that in the book of Job. So this is just, and then to see this, we see this display when you look at Sardis and Philadelphia, right? You see how they're cloistered together, and then you have a tail at Laodicea that's off to the side, right?
Yeah,
I mean, for me, it's absolutely very clear geographic depiction between the 7 assemblies in Turkey and the Pleiades in the heavens. I mean, it's just obvious.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of the audience probably know already that there is a great deal of mention of this being the constellation where, as Dr. Pidgeon said, when you're looking at the Greek pantheon, Kronos is the father of all the Greek gods. He's the father of Zeus, the father of Poseidon, the father of all of them, Hades. And we hear that this is the constellation where the fallen, the Nephilim, where they came from. The fallen of Elohim came from. The ancient tribes of the world all acknowledged that there were these constellations of stars, and this is where those from the heavens came from. We see this pattern of 7s in the book of Chazan or Hitgalut, the 7 trumpets, the 7 angels, the 7 vials. So it's interesting that we just talked about Saturn, 7.
Yeah, 7.
Now we're talking about Pleiades, 7. So there's going to be a cycle of 7s going on with this presentation, I'm sure. 7 years, then 7 years again.
So it's good to throw these around because it's context. And again, that's quite interesting with the fallen ones. But this is, on the right there, because he's 1600 BC. It's on a copper disc, so people knew it then as well, right? So as well as in the Bible. So pretty amazing. So, and it's got 7 stars in that one as well. Okay, next one. Look, this is a reach. Okay, and maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm clutching at straws. But I just haven't had time on task this week to do everything in the study to the requisite depth, and this is one of those areas that I skipped over. But there are 48 classical constellations. Okay. And of those constellations, it says in Revelation 4:4, around about the throne were 4 and 20 seats. Upon the seats I saw 4 and 20 elders. So that's 24 and 24, 48, clothed in white raiment. So white raiment, 48 objects, could be 48 classical constellations, but I don't know. All right. And they're all crowned with heads of gold, which could be the sun as they light up the constellations as it goes through them all. But I don't know. That's a grasp. That's a reach. But just it's something and nothing for this presentation. Okay, it doesn't make or break the case, so we'll walk past it, but I'm putting it out there on the table. Okay, so I want to move to the next couple of slides. Now this is where it starts. So the presentation starts now. If you want to move to the next slide, Jess, we'll go through the story. So Revelation is not in order, it's synchronized and overlapping. And what I mean by this is multiple descriptions are used to depict a different aspect of the same event. So of the trumpets and vials and parallel, for instance. At the bottom right there, on one of the other shows we did, we showed that the sixth seal, seventh trumpet, and seventh vial are all correlated to the same event. Okay. Another one that came up just this week, and I was thinking about it, was death being taken from the earth. Could be two descriptions, right? If death goes away for 5 months, then death being taken away from the dead means a resurrection, and 2 Book 15:51 is the appointed time where the dead come out of the ground because death's taken away from them. And death's taken away from the living, Revelation 9:6, because they've been tormented for 5 months, they can't die. So there's strange things going on. All I'm saying is there's correlations of different events that may not tie together, that may be tied together, and we need to maybe look at the separate events, but maybe the same events from different eyes. Okay, so you may not agree with any of that, but that's just, my take on it, the reading it.
No, I've seen this before, John. Actually, that the seals followed by the trumpets, followed by the bowls, are really essentially the same events as they unfold. The seal folds into the trumpet folds into the bowl. It's an expansion, if you will, of the same event. And I tend to agree with this. And then the question is, of course, death being taken from the living. This is a very interesting torment, and I think we're seeing the precursor of that right now. Okay.
Yeah.
The precursor in the monkeypox. That's not that's the sign, but it's a precursor of the sign.
I mean, all I'm trying to do here on this page is to really open our minds up to the prospect that as we go through these signs, when you see certain things, they may happen together, they may not. I mean, look, everyone's been trying to decode these symbols for 2,000 years, and nobody's got it right yet, I don't think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Garry, you agree with that more or less, or? Sorry.
Yes, I didn't want to extend because I know there's a lot in the presentation, and I don't want to, get us bogged down in mud, so to speak. I want to keep the momentum going, and we can do more to the chatter at the end. I want to allow people to get everything and hear it without too much disturbance.
Spot on. Okay, great. Let's spin through the next ones then. This is where we get the horse rolling. Okay, so, first event, 5th of June 2024. Revelation 1:2. The mystery of the 7 stars which you saw in my right hand are the 7 gold menorahs. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 called out assemblies, and the 7 menorahs which you saw in the 7 called out assemblies. Now, Uranus or Orion, newly named, I think it's a time-locked divine help name, right? Personally, it's called Little Light. And if you actually look at it, and I've got the link there, it's bright. Okay, it's like a mini sun, but bright white. And this is kind of like a pilot light. And if you see on the bottom left, we've got the times of India. It says Uranus entered the sign, or Uranus entered the sign of Taurus on the 1st of June 2024. The ingress of Uranus into Taurus will last for about 7 years until 2031. Now, if you look at the placement of Uranus, it goes directly underneath the menorah or the Pleiades. And you can see that on the 5th of June, you can see I've drawn a line there where the sun is giving its glory. Venus, the second aspect of Yahusha, this could be the father, is there. We've got the witness to the recorder, Mercury there. You got the little light, the pilot light there, which is obviously Uranus. You got Yahusha there as Jupiter, and you got Mars, all in a direct line on the 5th. So for me, that's almost like a ceremony with the sun shining over this positioning as it happens. Call me crazy, but that's kind of an event if you look at it from a stage perspective. Okay. So, and I'll say Uranus goes in.
I just want to say that when I started looking at this stuff, this will blow your mind. This stuff, it must capture the attention of all those that are watching and those who are searching. This is screaming at us that we are a people. The bride must be ready.
Yes.
The bride must make herself ready. The universe is telling us the king is coming. I just wanted to just praise Yah for all of this.
But it is. That's what's it's so humbling. Sorry, Dr. P. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying hallelujah. I mean, I agree with Gary. I mean, I think there are things here that we need to see, that when we look at this, I mean, just a couple of things for people who are not used to this kind of teaching. Genesis 1:14, Bereshit 1:14 says, "You shall." This is a Torah command, right? It's a paradise Torah command, but it's a command. You shall use the sun, the moon, and the stars also for signs and seasons and days and years. You shall use the sun, the moon, and the stars for signs. The Revelation 12 opens up, and there appeared a sign, a wonder in the heavens. Well, what is it talking about? And when you talk about the fact that the Pleiades are readily identified in Revelation 1, these are the 7 stars, right? These 7 stars. And this is readily identified. The Gospels themselves, the Gospel of Matthew, identifies a group called the Magi that knew the date, the time, and the place of the birth of Mashiach by looking at the stars and finding it. So this isn't like occult stuff that's out of the blue. This stuff is direct from the gospel. It's direct from the Torah. It's direct from the book of Revelation. This is not like some kind of, and it's direct from the book of Job, talking about studying the Mazarot. So people who've been taught, oh, well, if you look at the stars in the sky and so on and so forth, if you're talking about like pop astrology, oh, gee, man, I've got, what's your sign, man? Oh, your personality is this. That's popular, hodgepodge. But when you're talking about astronomos, the law of the stars, and astrologia, the logic of the stars, then the question is this, is that are we as believers supposed to be looking at this stuff? And the answer is you shall use the sun, the moon, and the stars also for signs. And a sign is given in Revelation 12. And when you look at it closely in Revelation, you're going to see that so much of Revelation is a cosmological or astrological forecast. That's what's going on here. And that's what we're talking about here, John. I know sometimes we move quickly for people who have never heard this before.
Yeah.
People who have never heard this before, they're like, I was always taught in my church to not look at any of those stars because that stuff is a cult. Well, it's not a cult. It's not a cult at all. And, this is where I want to encourage those who are new to this kind of discussion to understand what is read in Scripture. I mean, if you're sitting here reviling because your pastor told you something different, one question I have for you is, did you ever read the entirety of the 66-book Bible that you were given? Have you read that cover to cover? My first question is, have you read that cover to cover? Second question is, did you read it with understanding, or were you just perusing through the thing as fast as you could to get through it? If you have read it, then you know that what I'm telling you is true. And you need to stop listening to somebody who's trying to control you through the tenets of religion and start reading the scripture that tells you the truth about life. And if you do that, you're going to find that this is not out of school. This is not occult practices. This is a discussion of that which we find in scripture. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. P. Well said. Yeah. If we go to the next slide now, this is the event we discussed last week, but in the context of this previous event, you can see now the menorah on the right. You can see Yahusha or Saturn getting into position now between the horns of the bull in conjunction with Mars. Okay. And this is now him sat in the temple ready for judgment. Okay. According to this. And that was on the 14th of August. Okay. And at this point, if I want to read some of the scripture, this is the point where 4:10, the 4 and 20 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne and worship him that lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, You are worthy, O Yahweh Elohai, to receive glory and honor and power, for you have created all things, and for your pleasure they are and were created. So this, as I've said before a couple of years ago, is, for me, if you believe in the divine council and watchers, that's them handing the crowns to the ultimate authority, Yahusha, the Ancient of Days, who's now going to take over for the serious stuff in the final 7 years. You could also read it if you look at constellations that, you know, will they stop, you know, people, you know, depending on what you believe in, do they give any power off? You know, astrologers say, oh yeah, well you get powers from the stars that make you want to do different whatever. Well, maybe the stars will stop giving their influence on the earth, you know, and it comes directly from the temple now. I don't know, maybe you don't believe any of that, but it's just considerations. We have to have open thoughts here in terms of moving
That's
forward.
a great point, John. And when it says that the sun will not give off her light, and the moon shall not shine, and the stars will not give off their light, this is an indication, and could very well be the, you know, when you talk about giving off light and so on, is that actually a discussion of the power of the star to influence the things on Earth? And it's so the passage is saying that the stars will no longer have their influence, and the sun will not have its influence, nor the moon will have its influence, but there will be a power and an authority which supersedes all of that.
Yeah. So that's the event we talked about last week. If we go to the next one then. So I've not been able to, this is the one I haven't investigated in detail. I've taken it from Daniel's video, and this is the silence in heaven for half an hour. Now, on the planets, the first one at the top, Uranus, or we've discussed the menorah for 7 years. The second one is Jupiter standing still for 12 hours, or half a day, the 9th of October. So that's your usual stopping still. At the bottom right, we can equate the 1 day to 1 hour. So in Revelation 18:18 or 18:8, it says, "Therefore shall her plagues come in 1 day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Yahweh Elohim who judges her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her, when they shall see smoke of a burning. Standing far off, fear of a torment, says, Alas, alas, the great city Babel, that mighty for 1 hour is your judgment come." So that's the 1 day to 1 hour kind of measurement, right? Like, you know, a day's 1,000 years. It's 1 day to 1 hour. Using the same there, half an hour would be half a day, and half a day is 12 hours. And we're seeing on that 9th of October, we're seeing, and Jupiter's moving all the time, it stops for 12 hours exactly to the minute, according to this. Now, I haven't done the verification on this. I need to go through another Stellarium program to have a look at it. But according to that, it stops at 3:31 a.m. and until 3:29 p.m. Jerusalem time for half an hour on the 9th of October.
Yeah, now that's from this point forward, John, I want to say that, you know, I watched the Daniel video, and, you know, there's a lot of things that I found in that video to be tautological. You know, I proved this, therefore that proves this, and this therefore proves that, and that therefore proves this. It's a tautology. You know, it's a logic circle that he has constructed himself. However, what is not a logic circle is what you're pointing out here. And what you're pointing out here is this may be very indicative of not necessarily the end of the world, not necessarily the end of the age, not necessarily the coming Mashiach, not necessarily the rapture, but rather this could be the day of judgment in the opening of the 7th seal. This could definitely be the opening of the 7th seal, specifically to that. And, you know, when we go on from here with the discussion, of course, is going to expand. But what I'm saying is that in the initial blush, when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of a half an hour.
Yeah.
Right. And so this does give indication. This does give an indication that what could be taking place is the destruction of Babylon. And of course, again, there's a lot of assumptions made in Daniel's video. Not that I'm criticizing the guy. I mean, I don't know him. And bless him in every way. I mean, I don't know. But when we're talking about that great city, Babel, there's a question as what is the great city, Babel? There's a question as to where that is and what it is. And there's also a question about, you know, the mystery Babylon, right? And the judgment coming. But I think there is definitely, we can see here from this prophecy, there's definitely judgment coming, and it's going to be utterly burned with fire. I mean, that is very clearly expressed here. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay.
I do want to chime in and just agree with Dr. Stephen Pidgeon that when I watched, I've not had time to really scrutinize and make the notes that I would like to, because just listening to the presentation by Daniel, I did pick up many assumptions. He makes many assumptions, and he's putting together scenarios that I find they tweak and they shift. So I'm not criticizing, I'm just critiquing.
Well,
there's a lot of assumptions in the presentation, so you need to take it on board with a pinch of salt and just go with the presentation. The alignments themselves speak for themselves. The alignments can't be refuted. That's why I think my mindset is paying more attention to the alignments and what's going on in the heavenly realm, and putting that aside from the assumptions, if that makes sense.
Spot on, Gary, and I think that's what you know. And thank you for saying that, because that's one of those things I'm trying to do with this presentation here, is not to be alarmist about anything, but let's just look at the facts, okay? And you know, Revelation 12 sign was a sign that's set those things in motion, but not, you know, the earth didn't fall in the day on the 23rd of September, did it? You know, but it's a sign showing what was coming forth, and this is the book opening. But it's a big part of the book opening, and it's quite exciting to look at it, but also quite awe-inspiring to look at what's going on, really.
Just want to chime in quickly and say another thing. What I also look is, it's a principle, as above, so below. No, I'm not a Freemason, but as Dr. Stephen Pidgeon himself made mention, that the Magi, as they call the wise men, they were looking up and seeing a sign of something that was about to manifest down below. So it's not a Masonic or an occult thing. We're not talking about astrology, we're talking about astronomy. And the heavens are created for the glory of the kingdom and for us to discern the times. So I'm totally in line with everything that's been said so far. So I don't want to delay things. Quickly just want to say as well, thank you to everyone that's welcomed me into the group. I'm not being rude in not responding to your chat. I just haven't managed to sign in to respond to the chat. So thank you everyone for your lovely welcome. I'm feeling the love, I'm feeling the welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I look forward to engaging with all of you in the very near future. Back over to you, Jim.
Cheers, Gary. Okay, Jess.
Okay.
Over to you, Jess. That's okay.
Okay, so Revelation 4. After this I looked, and behold, a gate was opening in the heavens, and the first voice which I heard was as it were of a shofar talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show you things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the Ruach, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper, and like a sardine stone. And there was a rainbow round about the throne in the sight like unto an emerald. And around about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 menorahs of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 ruchoths of Elohim. And before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around about the throne were 4 living creatures, full of eyes before and behind. And the first living creature was like a lion, and the second living creature like a calf. And the third living creature had a face as a man, and the fourth living creature was like a flying eagle. And the 4 living creatures had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Yahuwah Elohim Sevaoth, which was and is to come. And when these living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him, they sat on the throne, whose lives forever and ever. The 24 elders fell down before him that sat on the throne and worshipped him that lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, You are worthy, O Yahuwah Elohai, to receive glory and honor and power, for you have created all things, and for your pleasure that are and that were created.
Thank you, Jess. So this is the proof then for that Revelation 4. The first thing is the 7 stars. We talked about the Pleiades. The object is the star cluster Pleiades, I've called it stage there, animated by Uranus, the little lamp lighting it, that enters the 1st of June, alignment on the 5th of June, and leaves 7 years later on the 7th of July to 2031. Okay, so I'm just getting the facts down here so you can look at the appendix in the back of this presentation. There's the star alignments to look at yourselves and verify. That's the first one. The second one is a rainbow about the throne in the site likened to an emerald. So I was thinking about a rainbow about the throne like a rainbow, but it looks as a green rainbow. It's a green bow, basically. And Isaiah 61:1, Earth is a footstool, and well, the object we're saying is the aurora borealis, animated by lightning around on the top of the Earth, and it's permanent. So you can see a picture on the right hand side of the aurora borealis looking like a circle beneath his feet, a bow. Okay, hope that makes sense. The next one is the jasper and sardine stone we've covered, which is Jupiter and Venus. They're both actors. Jupiter's currently in the temple and the horns of Taurus since 14th of August and exits the 17th of May, about 6 months later. And the four living creatures we're saying are constellations. Now, I can argue which ones they are. There's a couple. There's Aquila, the eagle. There's also Pegasus with eagle wings, for instance. So you could argue that different ones. A man's face could be a number of them as well. So you can take your pick on that. I've not had a chance to get a compass out and have a look closely to do a better job. But, we're saying the four living creatures are different constellations, okay, and are permanent. Okay. Go to the next. Jess, thank you.
Revelation 6. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four living creatures saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and they that should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And when he opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures say, "A measure of wheat for a dinar, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius. And see you hurt not the oil and the wine." And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a green horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and Sheol followed with him. And power was given unto him over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword, with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth.
Thank you, Jess. So the proof for this one is the white horse. Okay, the interpretation is Sagittarius. And I've checked this out, as Daniel said before. It's the stage, the actor is the moon, with the bow of Sagittarius in the bow shape and in the correct orientation, in the right correct place. 1 day only, 9th of October, and it happens once every 7 years. I've got to confirm that. Okay, so that's on the video. It said once in 7 years, but I haven't confirmed that, but I need to. But obviously, it must be a rare event if it's a bow shape on Sagittarius's bow in the right angle. It seems pretty, a long shot to nail that date, and that's the 9th of October. Okay, it's the white horse. Next one is the red horse. Now, this is an interesting one. It's a cluster that I haven't paid much attention to particularly, and it's the twins of Gemini. Okay, so it's got Hercules and Apollo, and Hercules has the sword or the club, effectively, in one hand, and Mars, basically, on that day, on the 9th, is sat in the hand holding the sword of Hercules, or the club. Okay, it's 1 day's perfect position. It's 7 days in position and 4 weeks in the sign, but it's only 1 day on the hand holding the sword. It's on the 9th of October, and that's Mars. So we're saying that Mars is the red horse for this one. The next one is the black horse with a pair of balances. Now, the balances are obviously Libra, okay, and the scales. So the stage is Libra. The actor is Venus, which is Yahusha, the morning star. If you look at this, again, he's in the balances for 7 days, but it's only 1 day right on the pivot, and on the pivot is the 9th of October. Okay, spot on. And again, look at the proofs at the back to verify that. So far, we've got the 3 horses there in the 3 signs in pinpoint accuracy as to where they should be on the 9th of October. The last horse I can't find, okay, the green horse with death and whatever finding behind it. However, there is an asteroid that I'm looking at called Dolphin. That's a candidate because he's spinning around Jupiter for about 6 months or 7 months from June to April. But I don't know. All right, so the black horse is missing, but he might turn up later on. Any comments? I mean, that seems.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting because this gives an indication that although we've seen a lot of precursors leading up to this in these horsemen, that this appears to be an unleashing of these horsemen with specificity. And who is to say, the white horse, him that had a bow, right? So the bow in Sagittarius strikes me that's being a pretty interesting. If you let's begin with this idea, John, that we're looking at Revelation for purposes of it being something that is painted in the sky. Now, again, just to give some preliminary background on this. In the Cepher, we have every verse in the book of Revelation cited to its predecessor in the Hebrew Tanakh. Every verse of Revelation has a reference from the Tanakh, every verse. So to say that Revelation was just some kind of wild, crazy something that came out of John is an inaccurate discussion, because it was a summary, essentially, of all these verses and ideas. In some of the cases, it's not just a verse, it's a chapter. Like there's a chapter of Isaiah that is reduced to a single verse in the book of Revelation. So when you look at Revelation, to understand that it is not something that is born out of whole cloth because John was having a dream one day on Patmos and he wrote this thing. That's not what happened at all. This thing has a direct and whole, complete tying to the Tanakh. Premise number 1. Premise number 2, it appears that on one hand, we can look at Revelation and we can see that this is really a discussion of DNA from the beginning of it to the end of it. When you're talking about the 144,000 being representative of the genome, you're talking about sorcery and pharmakia being given in Revelation 20, verse 23. No matter what, there's lots of things pointing to that. But now we can also see that Revelation has an astrological or astronomical context that's very clear right from Revelation 1. The 7 stars are the 7 messengers, the 7 angels. The 7 stars are the 7 messengers. And then when you see the Pleiades, and you gave evidence for it right here in this presentation, that why if you're going to choose 7 churches, right? Why didn't you choose Antioch and Jerusalem and Alexandria and Cappadocia and Corinth? And why didn't you choose these places? Why did you choose these 7 churches that had never been heard from in any place else in any other scripture? But these 7 churches are placed, and the record of them is replete today. You can find them if you go on Google Earth. You can find their sites on Google Earth. When you see that, why would you do that? And then when you see the depiction that these 7 churches in Revelation are depicting the Pleiades, this is telling you something very specific, that Revelation does have an astronomical or astrological or cosmological inference. There's no question. And so here we see, so for you to see the 3 horses. Now, what I'm going to encourage you to do here on this looking at the pale green horse. Now, in the Cepher, we use the term green, and the Greek word there is chloros, and chloros is like chlorophyll, right? That's what gives the color of grass green. What makes grass green is chlorophyll.
Yep.
But I looked at this pretty extensively, comparing the 4 horses that appear in the book of Zachariah. There's a discussion about 4 horses, and they're at peace during the book of Zachariah. They're not at peace in the book of Revelation. And the horse that is discussed here, that is the alternative to the pale green horse, is a bay horse. That's how it's referred to in Zachariah. So what I would suggest to you, John, in looking at this is that there is a way that this is going to be found. And, you know, when you see that a fourth part of the earth is going to be given over to that. Now, it's possible also that the pale green horse is going to pass out of the October 9th day, and that it's not in part of that sign, that it comes later, it follows that. But I doubt it. I think it's there. We just haven't found it yet. And, you know, so in terms of looking at, you know, I would say as part of your reference, take a look at Zechariah 3 and Zechariah 2 and 3, and look at those 4 horsemen that are described there, and see what you can find. Because if I recall, the pale horse was traveling with another horse. I don't recall if it was traveling with the red horse, but the 2 of them were traveling together. They were traveling together. And so we might be able to find a land, because you do see, for instance, the sign you're seeing in Revelation 6:4 is Gemini, the twins.
Yes.
You see the twins there, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so it's possible that what we're seeing is, and I wanted to look and also to make a determination real quickly, if you can hang on for just 1 second, because I want to take a look at this word for sword in the Greek and see if I can get a handle on what that word is. So I just got away from my e-sword to clock in. But when we look at this idea that the twins, if again going back to Zechariah, that if the bay horse is traveling with the red horse, and then we have twins that are showing up here, both Hercules with Apollo, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And remember that what does it say in Revelation 9:11? It says, and then I saw a beast arising from the abyss, whose name was
Apollyon.
So you can see that Apollyon, and again, this may be again an astrological sign that shows Apollo, the twin in the Gemini twin, that Apollo is rising out of an abyss, that's rising out of some kind of an abyss, right? That too may be a cosmological sign in showing Apollyon, who in the Greek, and I don't know why you'd put in the Greek if it was written in Greek. Why would you add that passage in the Greek if the book was written in Greek, right? And in the Greek, he was called Abaddon, right? But at any rate, so I think this might give us an idea that in fact the pale horse is traveling with the red horse, and that it's one of the twins. Okay. Now, just 1 second here, because when we look at Revelation 6:4, I want to see what this word is for sword. Let's see, peace from the earth in order to butcher, and to give it was given. Oh yeah, so the word there, the Greek word, is the word makaira, and it means a knife, a dirk, a dagger, figuratively war or judicial punishment. Makaira. Okay. So yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, well, the odds are getting higher as we go through these. Okay, Jess, go to the next slide. Okay.
Revelation 9. And the fifth angel. Sorry, did someone want to say something?
Yeah, we got there. I just mentioned it. Now here we are.
Apollyon and the pit, Revelation 9. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from the heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and upon them were given power, as the scriptures of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of Elohim in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a man. And in those days shall men seek death, but shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of man. And they had their hair as the hair of a woman, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and their breastplate as the breastplates of iron, and the sound of the wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto a scorpion, that was stings in their tails, and the power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Iverid tongue is Abaddon, and in the Yaveni tongue his name is Apollyon.
Yes, that's great.
Just wanted
So-
to just quickly just re-highlight. Stephen, were you saying earlier on that Zechariah, the horseman mentioned in Zechariah chapter 1, would you agree or would you disagree that they're the same horses that we're talking about in Revelation 4?
They are the precursors for the horses in Revelation. Yeah, they are the foundation of those horses.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Cool.
Just to throw in case maybe some people may not be aware, would you also agree, I'm just this open to the panel, Zechariah, to me, or Zechariah, is an Old Testament revelations. It's a mirror for the book of Revelation. Many of the same things you read in the book of Zechariah or Zechariah are the same things you're reading about in the book of Revelation. So consider it as Old Testament revelation.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's definitely apocalyptic. And for instance, when you look at the passage, and I got the numbers wrong on the chapters, by the way, and it's been corrected in the chat. But the when you look at Zechariah, I believe it's Zechariah 5, talking about the missile in a silo, right? The fire in the measure. That there's two of them.
The woman in the measure.
The woman in the measure.
But it's not
I know
woman.
the translation. I know the translation can be rendered as ish.
Yeah. It's not two women in a basket. It's two fires in a silo that has a lead lid over the top of it. Why would you have a lead lid over a basket if it weren't carrying something radioactive, right? And it is located in the land of Shinar. That's what it says. It has its base in the land of Shinar. It's a very clear prophecy. And from my point of view, it's a very clear prophecy of missiles. And in this case, I believe it's nuclear tipped missiles. And they're going to be originating out of the land of Shinar. And so I think that prophecy is also pretty clear. And
to go into that one, because there has been some conjecture over the years between scholars as to this land of Shinar. We can go back to ancient Iraq or Mount Hermon in Israel is also called Shinar, because it means, in fact, the image behind you, Stephen, it's maybe not Mount Hermon, but it's a very good likeness of Mount Hermon with the white covering, and that shining white covering. That's what Shinar means in its ancient translation, is that shining coat of white armor over the mountain, which happens to be the mountain that the angels, the B'nai Elohim, came down and made that covenant to rebel, the first 200, according to the book of Enoch. So the question then is open. Are we talking about Shinar, where Babel was built, or are we talking about Shinar as in Mount Hermon?
Yeah, very good point. Very good point, Gary. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do not understand the impact of Mount Hermon, which I really think is the real name of Mount Hermon is Mount Seir, the home of the satyr, Pan, the Baphomet, and it is a very instrumental mountain in that region. And really, for all intents and purposes, it is the only snow-covered mountain in that region. There's nothing else that is high enough to get snow. And and of course, who has a base station right at the very peak of that mountain? The UN, right? Interesting stuff.
I'd like to play with that, but I'm going to be good boy tonight. I'm going to leave that one alone. And let John get to the end of this presentation for the benefit of the audience. I will be good and silence my mouth. Back to you.
Okay. There'll be plenty of time in the UK for
Keep
that.
the toys in the toy box, Gary. Keep the toys in the toy box.
Thank you.
Okay. So hey, this is where things get a bit funky again in terms of where we're going. So this retrograde motion stuff, right? What we're seeing is a couple of things. Mars, the red horse, comes out of Hercules and arrives back in Apollo 5 months to the exact day. And the way we can measure the day is two things. One is yeah, it goes out of the sign completely, out of Gemini and back in. But secondly, the moon, as I said, is like the second hand. It swoops by, and it's in conjunction on the 9th of March, directly afterwards. So you've got 5 months between them. So the idea here is that you've got the 5 months of troubles, of not being able to die, of the sores, etc., or whatever, and sorry, 5 months and 5 months here of the same. So that may be correlated, might be by chance, but I'd suggest that things aren't by chance. It's a statement. It might be a precursor or it might be an event. But there we go. 9th of October, 9th of March, make of it what you will. Okay, so that's that one. That's another mod. Then the next one is the 7th bowl, Revelation 16. It says, "And the 7th angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice into the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, 'It is done.'" Okay, so he throws it out. You can see on the right here the sign of Aquarius with the water bearer. Where I've put the yellow dot is circling around Saturn. Saturn's right in the hose, getting a hose big time by this thing, right? By the wrath coming out of the bowl, effectively. Now, if you look at the position of Saturn, on the 9th of October, it arrives in that position, okay? It stays in position throughout until March 2025, okay? In fact, it's been in that position since before then. So let me have a look at the top here. It's been there for a year. It got in position late March 2024, and conjunction with Mars on the 8th of April following the eclipse. And it's in position on the 9th, in this position here. And then what happens is on the 9th of March, 5 months again to the day, you get the Sun in conjunction with Saturn on this move here before it starts moving out again. So it's just another 5 month thing, but Saturn is under the hose there for a year, but certainly on the 9th it's still there. Could be coincidence, might not be, but it's pinpoint again. Okay.
And this is pointing that the water judgment, the divine judgment, begins to pour out on October 9th.
Yeah, I mean, Bullen just says divine blessings, right? But if you actually look at the star names, it just says the water bearer pours out water, basically. And if you look at it in context of the Revelation 16, if you read it that way, it just happenstance that Saturn is bang in that position there, and then is also in that position at 9th of March, 5 months later, before moving out. So
okay, now before you go on, John, before you go on, now look at this right here. Revelation 16:21 or 16:18 rather. "And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great." Okay. Now, this is something, having myself weathered a 9.2 earthquake when I was a child. This quake is something that has been very fascinating and very interesting to me. And I think that this is going to be an unleashing. Now, we're seeing a bunch of this unleashing that's taken place already. First of all, Dutch Sense has drawn a correlation between coronal mass ejections, CMEs, and their effect on the Earth causing earthquakes. That's pretty well detailed. And his corollaries are very well researched, and he shows direct dates and so on and so forth. And we have seen a massive increase, as Doug Fassett, if he's still in the chat, will testify to. There's been massive increases in CMEs over this last year, including one that's just happened just recently, like yesterday. And they intend to, the forecasting is that they're going to intensify, and they're going to keep coming with massive injections. Now, with that taking place, there are specific tensions. We have an area around the Pacific called the Ring of Fire. Have you heard of this Ring of Fire?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so this is the Pacific Ocean pushing on the tectonic plates all the way around its edges, and it really goes from Indonesia all the way around Japan, all the way through the south part of Alaska, down the coast of North and South America. So there are some major fault lines with substantial amounts of tension, one off the coast of Chile, one major one off the coast of California, but the most major of them all is what's called the Greater Cascadia Fault. And this fault runs from southern Oregon to the northern tip of Vancouver Island in British Columbia. And this fault has got tremendous amounts of pressure that have been built up. Most of the seismologists say this is the most problematic fault in the world in terms of the amount of tension that's built along that fault line. And so if we have an earthquake, my own suspicion is that that earthquake is going to generate from that source. And it is not going, it's going to be an earthquake like no other earthquake. In other words, the greatest earthquake ever recorded was a 9.8 in Chile. And the reason it was construed as a 9.8 is because it lasted almost 10 minutes. The earthquake that happened in Alaska that was a 9.2, that's the quake that I went through, lasted for 5.5 minutes. Now, John, you got to think, when you're talking about an earthquake lasting more than a minute, you become psychologically unstable from what you're seeing, okay? When you get into 2 and 3 minutes long of an earthquake, your mind begins to believe that this is going to be the perpetual condition of the earth from this point forward. Can you live in that environment with the earth doing that? Can you live like that? That is one of the questions that comes to mind. When you're talking about an earthquake that exceeds 10 minutes, and this quake, I'm suspicious, is going to be somewhere from 15 to 20 minutes long. It's going to be a 10.0, which means it's going to max out the Richter scale because the Richter doesn't go beyond a 10 point. It is going to trigger releases upon all the other fault lines where there is pressure and tension, including the Great Madrid Fault running up the center of the United States, the San Andreas running through California and Mexico, the fault line running along the Southern American peninsula. And then to make matters worse, this kind of disruption in that kind of fault line on the Pacific Ocean. I don't know if you remember the quake and tsunami in Indonesia. I believe it was in 2004. It killed 228,000 people.
Yeah.
That was a 60-mile adjustment of just a few feet along a fault line off the Indonesian coast. But it created what was called a basin-wide tsunami. That is to say, the whole of the Indian Ocean experienced tsunamis. This quake is going to cause a basin-wide event. There is going to be tsunamis along the entire periphery of the Pacific Ocean of massive size. I mean, we're talking about much larger tsunamis coming into the coast of Japan than what happened on 3/11. Much larger than that. And they're going to be washing ashore in Taiwan and in the Philippines and in Australia, New Zealand, in Hawaii, in Alaska, all along the western coast. There's going to be this. So this event promises to be very large. Now, if this is predicting that on October 9th, if this is what we're seeing here, that this prediction is that Saturn is going to pour out its bowl, and it's going to pour this out, and then there is going to be a great earthquake. And the great city was divided into 3 parts. Now, this is something else that we'll talk about when you talk about the great city dividing. You know, we've had our own theories about Jerusalem possibly being in Africa, in the Horn of Africa. And, you know, there's a prophecy that says that the Mount of Olives will divide in 2, and Mashiach's feet will stand on either side, and the waters will pour out all the way to the sea.
Yep.
That is very highly and very likely, very possible in the Horn of Africa that is having a tectonic division as we speak, right in the very situs where we thought that there was a possibility Jerusalem may have been. And so all of this, all of this, and when it goes on to say here, the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the great Babylon came into remembrance before Yah to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath, and every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. It gives you an idea of what we're talking. We're talking about a substantial displacement on the earth. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Sorry.
No, that's cool. That's great. I mean, this is the last slide, right? So this is kind of what you see is what you get. It's more of a. I wanted just to get on top of it quickly, so that as a group we can look to see to Gary's point, the constellations and the facts. I don't want to look at hysteria, mysticism, and this could be that, and make some sort of assumptions about that. I'm not saying that, you know, it's an amazing video Daniel's done. Don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. But I want to get it just to touch the ground with it a bit and make sure that we can, you know, just chew the cud a bit and talk through it rather than anything else. So the final bit here is the bottom part on Virgo. So in Virgo on the 9th. Mercury, the messenger's there with the sun shining on the Virgin, right? So Again, that could be blessings. It could be the resurrection. Could be all sorts of things, right? It could be the marking of the saints. As they go, the angels go down and put the tav on the heads, etc. To keep them separate. Could be all sorts of things, right? That's so. But that's on the same day. So the combination of what we've seen through these constellations and planetary movements on the 9th are just beyond probability. Okay. So there's something divine in it. And as you start looking at it more closely, you kind of almost think, well, there's a scene there with the menorah, with the sun there, and Mercury, and there's two aspects of Yahusha there, and this, that, and the other, with witnesses. And you think, get over yourself, John, but it kind of comes alive a little bit. So it's kind of nice to look at things a bit more closely from a different aspect. Anyway, so that's it, folks. Comments, Gary, yourself, Dr. P, Jess.
First of all, I want to say, John, you took that whole presentation and summarized it very well. Considering we did a lot of interruptions, a lot of talking, I know how mammoth that presentation was from Daniel's perspective. So you've done very good to understand it and to be able to relay it faithfully. So thank you for that, John.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gary. John, you did an absolutely magnificent presentation, consistent with your usual style.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. A bit dense.
Well, I've come under a lot of pressure today because I was so concerned about the Daniel video. So, I'm just so pleased. I mean, but all of you together are confounding. We're all at different levels here, and it's good for us to come up to speed with this. So, I really do want to hear from you with your closing thoughts on this, Stephen and Gary. Gary, please don't hold back. We've had some good conversations. So in light of what we've been speaking about today, please share here.
Stephen, John presented a lot of information, but there was a lot of information that John didn't present and probably couldn't present everything, because there's the divine is in the detail. So when you're looking at, for example, and again, I'm going off memory, John, so just help me remember the time of the sunrise in Jerusalem. All of these constellations, if you're doing any work of stellarium, you need to be looking at it from the perspective of Jerusalem and the constellations from that perspective. So the time of the sunrise at 6:40 a.m.
Yep.
9th of October. And again, he makes mention of the number 6, its relevance, the number 40, its biblical relevance. And it just happened to be, and again, every time I look at this, I find something myself, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So on that day of the 9th of October, the moon happens to be at 40% waxing gradient. Is it just by chance that it's 40? It wasn't 38, it wasn't 15, it's 40 again. So
40
these
for
numbers,
testing.
40 for testing, 40 for trial, 40 for perfection. So it's all like, wow, it's all, the numbers just start to scream at you, as well as the constellations as well. So the more detail, or the more attention you pay to the detail concerning all of these alignments, the more it's astounding. To be honest, I've never seen anything like it. So it's got my attention regardless. And what does it all mean? To be honest, nobody can say for sure. But I do take this message away to my congregations is be ready. Now, I do believe specific, and I'm sure if you were to get into it, we probably have different interpretations as to what happens at the 7 seals opening, and then the 7 trumpets, and then the 7 bowls. I personally believe we're not here for the 7 bowls, because of as what Stephen was just pouring out, that kind of cataclysmic destruction that's going on, it is totally global. And I believe personally, we're not here. Rapture, I subscribe to resurrection rather than rapture because of John Nelson Darby, if you know anything about that name, the father of so-called dispensationalism, the father of the rapture theory. I subscribe to that, but that's just a personal thing. I do subscribe to resurrection. That's biblical. And the first resurrection is a 1,000-year difference between the first and second. So I do believe that we are in the first, not in it, sorry, but I do believe in the biblical first resurrection, that we're to be in that. Hallelujah. So I do see these as signs, as correctly said. The Bible lets us know that the luminaries are not just for the Moedim. They're there as warnings, as signs to capture the attention of those who have discernment. So I do believe the heavens are screaming to us. The clock is literally arriving at the midnight hour. So we should be a people that should be ready to meet the King, regardless.
Yeah, very well said, Gary. And I think, we should have the oil in our lamps. We should have the oil in our lamps, and our temple should be clean.
Midnight cry, ready for the midnight cry.
Yeah. And so here we are. And I think this is, but I want to encourage everyone to be faithful and be strong. Mashiach had said, I will not leave you nor forsake you, even unto the very end of the age. And we need to be strong and stand in that. And in the courage of our faith, let us be a light shining in the darkness. Let us be a light shining in the darkness as we lift up our hands and say, Baruch atah Yahweh Sebaot al Kadosh HaKad Yashavel. Baruch Yahweh. And I think that the name of Yah is rising up now to be seen on the earth. And when I look out and I see the daily news, I see nothing but just absolutely the most extreme negativity you could possibly imagine. And it's like, how can you possibly get darker and more satanic in your approach to life than what you guys are proposing? And then I know that to Yah is the victory. And of course, in Satan's last hours, he's going to be very, very desperate. And he is very desperate. And so right now, the accumulation is on. The fallen ones are trying to recruit every last person they can into the fires of the inferno. And you don't want to be recruited in that group. And you want to be set apart and set aside and sealed with the mark of Yahweh. And I think we're there. And I think so, I want to encourage everybody that even with this sign being so ominous in the future, and we don't know exactly what the sign is giving us. It could be giving us the day of Yahweh. It could be giving us the sign of the great earthquake. It could be giving us the sign of the destruction of Babylon. All of those things could be occurring in that very single hour. They all could be happening. And is it the day of Yah? I don't know. Is it the day of the resurrection? I don't know that either. I think there may be 5 months still remaining. I think that the two witnesses are going to be known. There's not going to be a question. I think two witnesses. In fact, I think the two witnesses are going to be revealed even this coming Sunday. The 25th of August, when the original Revelation 12 sign completed, we could be seeing the revealment of the two witnesses. And in which case the resurrection won't be for 3.5 years from now, And we also see this idea of the 7 years being, of Uranus being in this, lighting the menorah for 7 years. Isn't that a phenomenal sign, John?
It's amazing.
I wanted to mention something, because I mentioned something in the midst of the presentation, and now that you've completed it, I want to just kind of unload the clip. There's a name. Anyone know the name Luis Elizondo? Luis Elizondo. He was at the foremost of the Pentagon's research and investigation into UFO/UAP phenomenon. He ran the office that specialized in documenting, collating all information around the world on UFOs, even abductions, all of that stuff. This is not just a guy like Nick Pope. Nick Pope worked for the MI6. He was basically Fox Mulder of England working for MI6. Luis Elizondo is the guy at the tip of things. He's got the videos from the inside within the Pentagon. He's released a book that you can Google, Imminent. That's the threat level he's saying we are at. Imminent regarding the manifestation of trans-dimensional entities. I didn't say ETs. I said trans-dimensional entities. The Pleiades is the constellation known for where these entities came from. And this is actually the concentration constellation for the deep space military program. We have a British hacker. I can find his name. It's not a hard problem to find his name, who hacked into the NASA computers and put it out onto the dark web what he discovered. A secret space fleet. Ships' names were listed, crew were listed by name, but then the next category was human, non-human, human, non-human, human, non-human. That we are working in tandem with non-human entities. I know this stuff sounds crazy. It sounds totally off, but this is where the black budget goes into financing these deep space programs using technology that we've never even, the warp drive systems and types of technology you've never heard of. Yet, these programs have been in existence for years. For years. The CIA released documentation that within the United States alone, over 30 million non-human hybrids are in existence among us. Why am I saying all this? As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. There has to be a time like we had in Genesis where the Benai Elohim are here, the Nephilim are here. The reports have already been going on since way before the Vietnam War of soldiers. I'm sure, Stephen Pidgeon, you heard about the Kandahar incident where Green Berets were called in to a situation where they were encountering a hostile entity that had 6 fingers in each hand and 6 toes in each foot. They lost that team. They sent another team in there, and they lost that team too. They were being skewered, and they were unloading their clips in its face. They did get the body, and the body was flown back to by a Chinook helicopter that had to put the body in huge pallets. I've actually heard the whistleblowers' testimonies of those soldiers that took that giant down. But they found out, and I know I'm going off record here. I'm saying I'm going to kind of pull it in a bit. all of these stories, they're ancient stories of those that came from the Pleiades. So when we see all this constellation alignment, is it possibly letting us know that those days of Noah are already upon us now? And it's almost as if by divine timing, Louis Elizondo's book is out called Imminent, that we are about to have global revealing of entities that will literally freak the world out. We've already seen the footage. I've seen the footage. I've heard the witness testimonies of soldiers who are actively, and some are no longer actively serving. They're telling the world because they want it off their conscience what they have seen.
So it's interesting. Well, the interdimensional stuff is interesting as well. There's a guy, it's worth Googling, called Daniel Nemes. He's a Spanish scientist who refused to sell out, because I know I've heard of a couple of people being bumped off who created similar devices. Yeah. He's created an energy device that doesn't look through like visuals for the objects, but he looks at the radiation from objects. So he looks like heat radiation, magnetic radiation, electrical radiation, etc. But just Google Daniel Nemes, you'll see, you won't get much on it, but what you'll find is the energy photographs he's taken of interdimensional beings and things that he claims to have taken, which is a bit eye-opening.
I remember it. I remember it.
So he's been going for a long time, since about 2016 or something, 2017, posting these things. I'm surprised if they're real. I'm surprised they're still around, but it's important for this show to be for the end times. You know, the whole ministry is for the end times. So it's about awareness, about sharing things. I'm hoping that the UK and the US feasts that are coming up now will have some quality time together to discuss things sort of like off the record a little bit, or maybe on the record together, etc., whatever, but to be a fertile ground to, you know, quicken our souls, spirits, minds in our Father, but also with some of these topics so we're forearmed, right? It's important.
The name of the hacker, for those who are interested, is Garry with one R McKinnon, McKinnon. Garry McKinnon, and he's the one that the U.S. wanted extradited.
There you go. Now, we should have forums like this, Jessica, during Sukkot, where we sit at a table and discuss these topics as a panel. It could be a very good idea. You know, Pastor Garry, I don't know if you've heard me discuss this before, but I talk about 2 epics in Genesis, in the book of Genesis, a prior epic in Genesis 1, and a second epic beginning in Genesis 2. So we have there's a 7,000-year history that takes place in Genesis 1, talking about these B'nai Elohim. Now, most Christians believe that there were a class of angels that had been created before mankind, and a third of them fell. That's the average Christian belief. But when you understand that the word angel, melek, or malak rather, means messenger,
Messenger.
and what we see is, and then of course, when you see the discussion about the Beni Elohim, the children of Elohim, what does it say in Genesis 1? And Elohim said, let us make man in our image. And he created them, male and female, he created them in his image and likeness. So the Beni Elohim are then described in Job 1:6, Job 2:1, having the capability to travel back and forth from heaven to earth and to and fro thereon. So this tells you, when you talk about transdimensional beings, the Beni Elohim demonstrated transdimensional capability. That's what's discussed in Job 1 and Job 2. That's what it says.
Yes.
And it even goes on to say that the head adversary, Hasatan, was with them in that discussion. And so, this is not extra biblical or abiblical stuff. We're talking about the book of Genesis and the book of Job. We're not talking about the book of Enoch or the book of Jubilees or something like this. We're talking about Genesis and Job, giving us an indication of this truth about these Beni Elohim. Now, the Beni Elohim are going to be a subject, an intense subject, because, of course, Mashiach becomes transdimensional upon his transfiguration. Right?
I was going to say the same thing. Yes.
Yeah,
he goes. You said that. Go ahead.
He goes from Ben Adam to Beni Elohim to Ben Elohim. And then it is written throughout the New Testament that we too are given this translation capability as Ben Elohim, as Beni Elohim. That by our confession of our faith and our belief in our heart, we become the Beni Elohim in our own respect. So this is, of course, in a soul circumstance and not in the flesh circumstance. But nevertheless, this discussion is, because the Christian church has not taught this. They've not, even though it's there in the scripture, they don't teach this. A lot of it has to do with, of course, like we talked about earlier, I was mentioning this at a class earlier. Imagine if 500 years from now, when all of the earth is destroyed, and there's a population of, basically cave people, Neanderthals living on the earth, and they find an old electrical power plant, and they pull out the transformer chassis and they put up on the altar and say, this was their temple. No, it was an electric transformer, but we didn't understand that. The Neanderthals didn't understand that. So they exalt it as some kind of an altar when it's not. And we have the same thing here. We can see things clearly with our eyes, like the pyramids and other things. We can clearly see them. They give evidence of something, but we want to refer to it in some kind of a religious aspect instead of a practical aspect. And so because of this, we're not seeing what is really right in front of us, because the church has painted angels as white creatures with great big white wings who hang out with halos on their head playing a harp. You lose sight of the fact that these are messengers. When you don't see the Beni Elohim carefully described as the Beni Elohim, then you don't recognize what scripture is saying about it. You see, so the translation itself becomes very misleading in painting the world as being full of gargoyles instead of telling you exactly what's here. And so these are just, that's why I think that even though the average person holds an idea, they're people, most Christians believe there was a pre-existing class that existed before mankind. When Paul says you will come to judge the angels, who is he talking about? Right? Who are we going to come to judge if they weren't a pre-existing class? And most people believe that a third of them fell and that they were being led by Hasatan. Well, all of this is probably very accurate. But when you come to recognize that we're talking about people who are transdimensional, coming back and forth from the Pleiades, that we call the Beni Elohim in scripture, boom, all of a sudden, hey, there's the record right there. This is not outside the scope of scripture. That's what I'm trying to say to you. It's not outside the scope of scripture. Scripture contains...
Just to add even more credence, Yeshua himself, upon his resurrection, he became what's called corporeal and incorporeal at will. He was in the room, but invisible to the disciples. All he did was just change dimension. Bing, he's in the room, and they're all frightened. He was there in the room, hearing the conversations that they were having, and then he manifested and proved he knew their conversation because he was in the room, but they couldn't see him. He was just in a different dimension, and he can do that at will. We will become just like he is. When we go through the translation, it's called, we'll be given new bodies. where Stephen will look like that 1 minute, the next minute you won't see Stephen at all. He's still there.
No, I'll be better. I'll be
He's in a
better
different
looking.
dimension.
Gary, I will be better looking. I promise you. I'll be better looking.
Just black hair and black beard.
Exactly.
So this is where our government is well aware that we're not dealing with extraterrestrials. The governments of the world know we're dealing with trans-dimensional entities. We've had various meetings in our government with non-human entities. This is recorded, where they just appeared in 10 Downing Street. At a pre-agreed meeting was taking place, and this entity turns up in the room as planned and then leaves, ping, gone. So this is what this tells us. We're dealing with demonic entities here. We're not dealing with some friendly ETs. We're dealing
Gary,
with
you're scaring me.
and I'm going to pause it there because people have to go to bed tonight and sleep easy.
Well, listen, look, before you go, June Myers asking here, are they from space or have they always been here? I believe they've always been here on Earth. Can you both answer that very quickly?
Well, the Watchers have definitely been here on. The Watchers have definitely been here on Earth. You know, the Watchers have definitely been here, and they've been here for a long time. They've been here for 3,000 years before mankind was created. They were here. And, you know, and then their responsibility. But, you know, as Gary talks about, you know, this idea that the Watchers descended on Mount Hermon or Mount Seir, and from there they came to do their tasks in the Levant, which was to mislead people. Originally, they were assigned as watchers, 2 by 2, to go and watch. And this is a whole other discussion, which I'm going to talk about at Sukkot, talking about Ir and Ur and how this all relates to the land of Ur and where it was and who was doing what. But we're going to see that they decided that instead of watching and mourning, they decided to take human wives and become kings and masters. And they created a body of giants. And those body of giants are in fact still with us. And what Gary is saying is that there's the records indicate 30 million of them on the earth today. So who are you dealing with? And I don't think they're appearing as giants. I think they've managed to maintain their size so as to not become well known. And I think they also appear as women, not just men. So we have, you know, I mean, Enoch describes their ability to shapeshift.
Yes.
Right? And so this shape-shifting capability, which you could imagine, if they're transdimensional beings, could they shapeshift? Of course they could. And so we don't know. You don't know who it is among you. We do know this, that the fallen ones hate mankind with a passion, and they have an agenda. Either get the person to sell their soul to the dark or kill them all. And so you see it coming out of their mouth all the time. Oh, we need to reduce the population. We need to reduce the population. We need to kill them all. Kill everybody. The people who are saying that are almost undoubtedly, I'm not going to say that I know it for certain, but they are either fallen ones or they're the agents of fallen ones.
Just want to read 2 Bible verses from the book of Kazan, chapter 5, verse 3, and chapter 5, verse 13. So verse 3 and verse 13. But no one in heaven, on earth, or under the earth was able to open the scroll or look inside of it. Verse 13. And I heard every creature in heaven, on earth, and under the earth, and on the sea, yes, everything in them, saying, to the one sitting on the throne and to the Lamb belong praise, honor, glory, power, and forever and ever. Ancient cultures all around the world have been documenting entities coming out of the earth. Some looking humanoid and some looking not humanoid. And the Sazi Indians, native Indian tribes, Aborigine tribes, African tribes, ancient Chinese and Japanese writings depict entities and creatures coming out of the earth. Even in Europe, many stories and ancient tales of creatures, and some humanoid and some not humanoid, coming from out of the earth. Admiral Byrd, the famous Admiral Byrd story of him going into the Antarctica, discovering a race of entities, extremely highly technological, living under the ice caps. Why have the ice caps been so closely guarded by all the nations of the world? I'm not looking for just remnants of the dinosaurs. No. Famous. I don't want to keep going. I would keep on going on. But yes, the answer to the question is there are entities that have been living here on the earth and under the earth for quite some time. There are also portals. Remember what the Tower of Babel was? The Tower of Babel in ancient Hebrew means confusion by mixing. But in actual fact, it's not a Hebrew word. It's an ancient Akkadian word, which means gateway to the gods or gateway to the powers of the heavens. So these are portals. You want to call it CERN? Call it CERN if you want to. But these are portals to access other dimensions. Babel was all crystal and quartz. Most obelisks, quartz. The pyramids made of quartz stone. These are power points to access different realms. Not all of them are on the land. Many are in the sea, under the oceans, and in the earth. When we hear entities coming out of the earth, it's because they're coming through portals from other dimensions under the earth and then up. And that's how they're being recorded by these ancient peoples all around the world. I hope that all makes sense.
Well, Garry, I'm really looking forward to seeing you at Sukkot.
I am too, sir. I am too. We're going to have many discussions.
No bedtime stories, though. Okay.
Yeah, well, we got to do this around the fire, right? Got to do it around the campfire after the sun's gone down. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. But look, thank you. Garry is spending the full duration with us, and you know, that's a big sacrifice to him and his family. His family is coming, his fellowship will come as they can, but he's bringing some to help me in different ways. And you know, he's been an inspiration to my son. He's taking him on to mentor him in Torah. That is fantastic. You know, having someone in the UK, I've got support of Stephen and Jon here, of course, but on the level that Dallas needs it, with the courses that Garry offers right now, that just is something that is very appealing, and just working with him. And I'm looking so forward. Today, I knew that it would turn out like this, and I'm really looking forward, Stephen, to have these panels with Jon and Garry, and putting this into the 8 days. You know, there's so much that we can cover, and it's not only for those who are in person, because we are going to be bringing these live on Stephen Pidgeon channel, I hope, and Eddie Chumney channel, and Eating While Honey, all at the same time, so that we can maximize this feast, but also what we're doing to reach, you know, our international family at the same time. So we're really trying to have you in mind for everything. I'm very excited for today. It was absolutely phenomenal, and really looking forward to it's continuing in 3 weeks' time. Garry, thank you so much for being here today, and just the wonderful inclusion, as I knew you would do. Jon, your wonderful insight that in the study that you've done. I know it's been exhilarating for a couple of days, and then yesterday with all the changes with Wesley, we just knew it was right to do this. And then I know I threw a spanner being concerned about that video, but it was just absolutely wonderful how you've presented this. So thank you. And like everyone here has said, it's to be on watch, and to know that this year is, you know, a specific watch year and very significant. Garry, would you please pray for everyone in this chat going to be watching here later, and just take us out, please? And thank you so much again for being our guest here.
It's been wonderful. And I just wanted to add in there, one of the things that we didn't mention is that there are some celebrating Sukkot in September and some celebrating Sukkot in October, and the date that we're speaking of falls right in the midst of the October feast dates. That's what makes this so significant. There are so many levels to this that I know that Jon couldn't go through everything. He's done a great job to keep it within such a precise time. And if we hadn't butted in so much, we would have done it in less time. Great job. But it was needed. It was needed. I think it's a good appetizer for us to go and watch the video. If you haven't watched it, I encourage everyone to take a look at the link and watch the video for yourself. Hallelujah. Let's come together in prayer. And thank you all for all of you who have given well wishes and your warm welcome. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed tonight. Heavenly Father, we come to you humbly, in awe of the heavens and in awe that you're speaking to the universe. The universe has recorded I can see the birth pains certainly are here. I pray for the bride. I pray for all of the Yasharel. I pray for those who are still coming in. It's not too late. The harvest, Father, I pray that everyone is busying themselves, going out and bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the fruit, bringing in the grain, bringing in the souls. We shouldn't just be sitting here waiting for the king to come. We should be found busying ourselves, putting our hands to the plow. Whatever we can find to do, we should be doing it before the king comes. We should be striving to reach those lost souls. Father, I pray for the whole house of Israel, that you would bring in those who have wandered too far. I pray for our children. I pray for our sons and daughters. I pray for the widows. I pray for the orphans. I pray for those who have been ministers for so long but have become tired and wearied. I pray that they would be quickened by the Ruach HaKodesh to be on fire. I pray for fire for the entire body, fire on the women and fire on the men, that we would all be kindled and quickened in our spirits to prepare the way of the King. So, Father, I pray that we as a people would understand the significance of being set apart for a peculiar purpose. That as the bride, it is on ourselves, on us, to make ourselves ready. Help us, Father, to shun the deceptions of this world and the fallacy and the vanity of this life, and to keep our eyes solely on you and align ourselves in love with each other and align ourselves with you. Father, have mercy upon us for where we failed and let you down and let each other down. But let us not hold on to that. Let us stand up. The Bible says a righteous man falleth 7 times but rises back up again. May we stand up now and be powerful, victorious, and overcomers in this last hour. Not even day, last hour. Help us to be ready. So when the midnight call goes out, we are able to enter in to the wedding banquet. And to you and unto you are all things. We worship you, our King. To worship you, I live. To worship you, I live to worship you. Oh, hallelujah. Oh, we worship you, our King. We worship you. We love you. We adore you. We are humbled by your glory and your presence. May your presence be found in our homes. May your presence be pleased with us, that we might be invited into the wedding banquet. Yes. And hear those words, well done, my good and faithful servant. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Wow. What a beautiful way to end. I am humbled and silenced. So beautiful. With that, I just want to say to you that we love you and we will see you again soon. Thank you for that beautiful impartation from the beginning of this presentation to the end, and that prayer and send out. We love you. We will see you very, very shortly. Thursday is the next call. Take care. Bye-bye.
Right.